Welcome to the Measure Success podcast, where we talk with top leaders about effective strategies that inspire success. This episode is brought to you by 40 Counting. 40 Counting is built to help make sure that we can help you get your bookkeeping, financial reporting and analysis, and tax reporting done all very simple and all with one firm. If you want to learn more, go to 40accounting.com. With that, really excited to have with us Mohan Rao. He is the Chief Product and Technology Officer at KnownWell. I'm going to let him share with you a bit more about that. But he has led numerous SaaS companies in the past as a CPO, CTO, COO. He's been a great leadership figure. And what I'm really excited about today's conversation, he's talking about how taking software to the next level, specifically AI, how to turn this into products, how it's really changing the way we do software companies, and how it can help out the companies he serves, professional service companies, with their analysis, their understanding to do better, to know well, so to speak, right, Mohan? So, Mohan, welcome to the Measure Success podcast.
Carl, thank you for having me on.
So, let's start out with, share us more about your company and how you're help serving the world and make it a better place.
Yeah, KnownWell at KnownWell.com is a AI platform. It's a SaaS company for commercial intelligence, for providing commercial intelligence, and we focus on professional services companies. So what is commercial intelligence, right? So it is many things. When you're delivering projects to your clients, there is the client relationships, there is the engagement relationship, there is revenues aspect of it, there is the entire value chain of how you provide services to your clients. There is no good way to measure this in services, which is why historically, Carl, services companies have never scaled. So if you think about services companies, they grow to about $20-30 million and generally speaking, and sort of hit a bottleneck there. Or you can go to the partner model like an Accenture or some of the bigger companies, and there are these billion-dollar services companies. There is nothing in the middle because it's a barbell. Because fundamentally, the people-oriented businesses, relationship-oriented businesses do not scale. And what we're attempting is, can we, in this new age of AI, codify these risks, codify the growth opportunities, and allow for these companies to scale beyond what they've traditionally scaled?
Okay, you've got my ears listening, because this is a true challenge. It's a challenge for us at 40 Strategy. Of when I'm the key person. Yes, I have a documented process and procedure in terms of how we do our strategic planning and execution, but it's limited to me to some extent, right? Even though I could teach other people what's happening and taking place, there are limitations around that. And so that's what we're finding other ways to help expand and grow that more deeply. But, once again, software and AI is a great aspect around that. So give us an example of what that means. How does a relationship-based consulting organization that's kind of built based on the founder and perhaps other couple key principles within the organization expand themselves so they're creating more value and turning perhaps even a bit more into a product company than they were in the past?
Yeah. Any one person can keep a limited number of clients and relationships and what's going on with that particular client in your head, which is why most consulting companies started by great practitioners get to about 10 clients. And then it's really hard to kind of keep your 11 to 20 in your head and process it all in your head or in a spreadsheet or whatever it is. And then you traditionally add one more principal, or you may have a principal already, and you may scale to 20-30 clients. And after that, it's really, really hard to scale, because then what happens is it's not just the principals, you're expanding the organization, you're splitting out delivery and account management into two wings of the business. And these two wings of the business don't scale. And suddenly what happens is the excellent customer client service that you used to provide and the excellent delivery that you used to provide starts getting diluted. And there is no way around this. And added to it, there's another challenge, which is around excellent practitioners don't make good consultants. So when I was at Deloitte back in the day, right, so to become a partner, you had to not only solve, but you also had to sell. And you had to be in the entire solving to selling spectrum. And that's very hard because people either solve or they sell, and they can't do both. And there are only limited number of people that you can keep adding. You can go to the partner model. That's a different exception. Let's leave that out. So what we've developed and what we are working with our initial set of clients is a way to ingest all of the what we call the natural information flows, right? So you're talking to somebody on Zoom or the Slack messages or the emails. These are the last untapped data in an enterprise. And be able to take all of these people to people communications that are happening through various technologies like Zoom or Teams, get that into the platform, analyze what's going on, and then put it on a what I call a product rubric to be able to tell various parts of the organization, whether it's account management, customer success, delivery, marketing, whoever it is, here is what's going on with this client, right? So here are the hotspots that are showing up at these clients, and what we have a KnownWell score around it. So the KnownWell score is declining for this client because you're starting to ingest this data, because there is something that is said in the meetings that doesn't get picked up. And we can do that sort of analysis. We can pick up those signals and be able to show it to everybody in the company. And so the company can work on together to come up with an account plan and be able to rescue that client, because clients don't go sour overnight, right? So it happens over many weeks, like 6 weeks, 12 weeks, right? So things keep going south and you just don't have the signals to know in a scaled organization that's happening. Early on in the journey, you could, because you were the principal dealing with it. Similarly, with growth opportunities, most services grow on land and expand. We all know that. There are limited set of logos you have, but the idea is to keep deepening the relationship. And it's really hard to expand in a scaled model. So then our platform identifies these growth opportunities and be able to show what sorts of account strategies can be put in place, both from a retention and growth perspectives, but also from a client knowledge management perspective, and get it all into the platform. Additionally, Carl, what we can do is you can look at all of your clients and say, here is what is the root cause problems of 12 out of my 80 clients. This is the problem we have. And be able to look at it from a root cause perspective and solve that, and hopefully make many clients happy at the same time.
That's good. That's good. That's so. As you've been going this and working with your clients on this, what's been their aha moments, right, when they've started using this product?
Yeah. The reception has been phenomenal for us because this category of product was not there before in the professional services world. It always existed. A version of this existed, not with AI, but it always existed in SaaS companies. It existed in financial services because there's lots of transactions going on back and forth, back and forth. You had that data, but you didn't have this data before. We can deal with it on two different levels. One is, does it make the human more effective? Right. So can they do their jobs better? Because, there is this piece of information that they didn't have before. There's an early warning signal here. There's a growth opportunity, so on and so forth. So you can make the account manager or the delivery manager so much more effective, but you can also make them more efficient. Right? So you can create a monthly business report now that is 80% done, because you have all the data, you're collating it together, creating the templates, filling it with the right data. So we play on both the effectiveness and the efficient vectors here, dealing with all parts of the organization. And the reception has been very positive.
I'm curious, do you have like data yet in terms of how much improved retention or perhaps value added? Do you have like some data insights that you've been able to discern? Does the software create a return on investment, I guess is where I'm getting at.
Yeah. We are still early in our journey to have a number of use cases. We are working with, two handfuls of customers to iterate on our product. So it's really hard to say, to claim solid ROI on what we're working on. But generally speaking, what we are getting anecdotally is, my goodness, this client that, I'm so glad we intervened in it, because they were really upset with us, although we didn't know that they were upset with us. So you're getting those. We're starting to develop case studies now around this. So we are on a pace of, showing good positive trajectory in that direction. But an ROI itself is coming next. I think generally speaking, for most companies, if you can get one of your bigger clients saved every year, it pays for itself, right? So generally, what happens with most of the smaller consulting companies is you have two or three big clients, and then you have a tail of small clients, right? So the question is, how do you measure this? Do you measure the big clients? Do you measure the tail so that you can focus on the bigger clients yourself? So there are various strategies you can put in place. The ROI itself will be very compelling. We are very confident about it, but we are still in the early days of this.
So give me, I'm kind of really curious. Help me discern, help me understand a little bit more. How do you know like when a client's upset? Like how is that discerning and where the AI is picking it up versus what I call perhaps the intuition of the partner already? You know, how is that being seen that they may have not have caught on to?
Yeah. If it is the partner, if it's a principal and focused on that client, I would say generally the human brain can pick it up if you're paying attention to that client, right? The issue is around when you have 100 clients, what happens, right? Right. So generally, it's our software starts becoming relevant when you have maybe 35 clients, 30 clients, something like that. So let's just take it at 100 clients. It is virtually impossible to build an organization to care about all 100 clients like you yourself cared about it when you had 10 clients, right? So that's the difficulty. That's what we're trying to solve. But even with 10 clients, we can mix a lot of data in, a lot of external sources in. For example, you can tap into press releases, annual reports. If your client is having budgetary pressures or likely will have budgetary pressures because it is there in the annual report, but you just didn't pick it up just because as an organization, you're a little scared and it's hard to look through every annual report. And just being able to just provide that context to the account manager or the head of account management and say, listen, this annual report came out or the last quarterly results came out. There's an issue here. There was a key executive departure, right? That is one of those things that gets all the time. Somebody in a meeting says, our CMO is leaving. And if you're in a marketing agency, you better kind of know that that is the signal where it could be danger for you because they're going to have a new CMO and they might have their own agency in mind, so on and so forth. Happens all the time. But the thing, Carl, is this information is mentioned in various meetings, but it doesn't get picked up as a signal to do something about it. Just because in a scaled company, somebody heard it, but they didn't think it was that important to report up, so to speak.
So from that perspective, which again, just summarizing it, and I'm looking here on your website for those who, if you go to knownwell.com, you can see and observe this for because we're not showing it right now on the podcast, but effectively it is literally pulling data in from all the different, from your email to perhaps your client communication tools to all your major things that you're already touching base with the client, and it's putting it all into one, right? So it's one complete tool. And I love it. Even like LinkedIn, it's going to pull from all your different sites and then go, okay, how is this real communication taking place? And so it's in one spot rather than, it's better than just like what I'd say is just the one email, right? Because it's actually pulling multiple different data points from that perspective.
Exactly. I mean, it is creating essentially what you could do when you had 10 clients to when you have 100 clients and be able to provide that kind of analysis, pretty complex analysis, and be able to get the signals out around client health, whether it's a retention issue or a growth opportunity. Growth opportunities are as important as retention. So that's how you grow. And these things get missed as you continue to scale.
Prior to us starting, we had a very brief part of our conversation of strategy, and what I made a comment is that, my observation has been is people run their businesses, but they're not necessarily figuring out where they should go to be more effective, meaning, i.e., using strategy to get to their next outcome. Right. Or if they're trying to grow larger or be more effective or be, win their particular market. And that one of the books you mentioned, which was Playing to Win, right? And which is, I agree, is one of the top, it's been often it's considered one of the top 5 or top 10 strategy books in the past, really 40 years, 40, 50 years. And so if you don't mind, for those who haven't read that book, just for purposes of this, I'll say this is a book you're going to recommend the audience because we're sort of skipping ahead to a question I typically ask later on. Explain to those who haven't heard of it, what does that mean? When you're using that strategy framework yourself, you said, what does playing to win mean?
As the book says, strategy is not complex, but it is very hard, right? So to me, there's a lot of wisdom in just that statement, right? Because what you got to think about is what is the arena that you're going to play in? what is it that you're going to offer? How well, what are the products and services that you're going to offer? Just sort of making a set of choices that allows you to win and allows your clients to win is sort of everything, right? So, in terms of strategy, just making these choices is the essence of that book. There are 5 questions in that book that you answer at every level of the company, all the way from the board to the CEO to head of sales to the account manager, right? Whoever it is, you just answer very in a disciplined way those 5 questions, and it gives you a sense of strategy of how to frame this, what choices are we making, what are we doing, what are we not doing, so on and so forth. That's what is lovely about that book, as opposed to some very abstract analysis that most people think of as strategy, whether it's some kind of vision or something like that. It's often confused with those things.
Yeah, it's no, I appreciate once again your insights around that. So, with your clients today, as you're working with them using the Measure Success podcast name, how do you measure success with them?
Yeah. You mean with our clients?
Yeah, with your clients.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about how you're measuring success in your own business today.
Yeah. I think with our clients, it's about they really want to offer very client centric companies. Most consulting companies, most services companies get into the business because they want to serve clients, right? They are experts in a field. They want to provide the best possible service. And it happens for a while till you expand, right? So if you can keep that client centricity, even as you're scaling, you're winning. All right. So, but then what does it mean, right? So, to keep that client centricity, it is about not just how the service delivery that you are offering them, but it is what is it that they perceive your service delivery to be, right? So there's a difference between what you think versus what they think. So, being able to provide a service quality that's of the highest order, that is super important. And the second is around the relationship strength. How strong are the relationships with the client? Are you in tune with their challenges and what they're trying to achieve? That's really important, and that starts fraying as you grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And finally, is there good commercial alignment, right? So, which is really important. It's what you can do well versus what they need. Is that a good corresponding thing, or is that starting to kind of be a little bit of mismatch? So those are the types of ideas that are really important in terms of clients and their success. But ultimately, it is about providing good client services for and continue to grow. And of course, all of this in the end will show up in financial measures. Right, so whether it's in revenues or EBITDA or operating margin, it's the story is always told, but those are lagging indicators that come later. But hopefully, if you're doing all of this right, there's a good picture of that in the end.
Curious for you, as you're right now in your own business, growing this, and where do you see you guys 3 years from now? What does victory look like 3 years from now for your company?
There is such a tectonic shift going on in the technology landscape with AI. And especially, we're really excited about the AI agents and the agentic AI era. So, what we want to be is the enterprise platform of the AI era. All right. So, in our chosen sector, which is professional services, right? So ultimately, services companies don't use CRMs, right? So they may buy Salesforce, but they use it for some sales and marketing, and then it stops at the water's edge, right? It's not used for delivery. Same thing with any of the other tools. I don't mean to single out one, but ultimately, professional services are not run in a way that scales through systems and processes and numbers. They're all very relationship oriented. And so we would love for us to be the enterprise platform of the AI era.
Okay, that's a good vision. I know you were talking about, but that's what victory is for you. But that's a great vision of what you described right there. So that's outstanding. I'm curious for yourself, right? You're a busy person right now. You've had a lot of success in your past career, and I've got to imagine you're putting a lot of time, energy, and effort to help get this company off the ground to accomplish the vision you just described. What type of habits are you doing yourself on a regular basis to help make sure you're performing at your best level?
Yeah. You know, Carl, this is my 8th startup and scale up. Right. So I've been a serial sort of startup scale up type guy. And, I'm not proud of anything else other than I'm really proud of how long I've lasted in this. Right. So because, startups are hard, right? So you got to have an excellent set of habits to your question, right? So it is, the relationships that you have at home with friends, it kind of really starts with that, right? So just having strong relationships and understanding that the personal life is going well and you're as happy as you can be, it starts there. It obviously then goes to your own self-care in terms of exercise and nutrition and all of that stuff. That's super important, because if you don't do that, you can't do the first thing. You got to put the oxygen mask yourself first before you put it on others. So that's important. And then, the way I've always thought of it is you need to be working with good people. Whether you work in a big company or a small company, life is too short to not be working with good people. Let me call it that way. If you work with good people, I think it just kind of, the rewards are there in itself in the journey. And then hopefully you're very successful in the end, and that's great. But the chances of that are not very high, right? So there's only like one Steve Jobs to so many others who were also entrepreneurs. So it is one of these things where I just optimize on working with good people, and then work doesn't feel like work at all.
That's a great answer. So now how do you measure success in your personal life based on what you said there?
One of my favorite books is around How Will You Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen, right? So it is just the most wonderful book that has had such an impact. And I'll just kind of say from that book, right? So the core measurements to your, because that book just answers your question, is around professional success, not just about promotions and making more money, but about meaningful contributions. That's one. Then it's about the personal relationships and the quality therein as number two. And then the last one is really important, which is the personal integrity, whether what you've said your stated values are and the actual choices you're making, are they in sync or are they getting out of sync? And nothing is worth it when they start becoming out of sync in terms of personal integrity. This is an answer straight from that book, but that's what I believe in.
Thank you. No, you actually recommended two great books today, and I appreciate that, because that's typically I ask a question: what is a book that impacted you? And ask them as a part of the podcast, which is fantastic. How can people connect and learn more about what you and KnownWell are doing?
Thank you, Carl. We are at knownwell.com, COM. And, I can be found on LinkedIn at Mohan Rao. It's LinkedIn/IN/Rao Mohan, last name, first name.
Mohan, thank you so much for being a guest on the Measure Success podcast today.
Thank you so much, Carl. This was so much fun.
Really, once again, truly looking forward to how you're going to change. And I'll be tracking you now in terms of getting to this vision of becoming the AI player for professional services. I think that's a wonderful vision and goal. And it's a much needed one. I mean, there are truly a wonderful professional service organizations that are stuck. And what you're trying to get is this tool to help them unbreak their own strategic ceiling, right? If you may, right? That they have in place. And so I think that's a very exciting goal that you're trying to accomplish and an impact you could have on the world. So with that, as we always like to say to our guests, we're just so grateful to them for being on, like Mohan here, but also appreciate to you who are the listeners on the Measure Success podcast. Thank you for listening today. I hope you've learned something. I hope you definitely, if you're in this field, you should take a look at what knownwell.com is doing. And with that, I always like to say, wishing you the very best and measuring your success. Have a great day.